so intimidating. It's great.
Is it intimidating? Yeah, it's quite funny because I'm slowly starting to see how much I learned since I'm, no longer working as a veterinarian, but do all these other things. And it's like, wow, I've learned a whole other career, which is,
yeah,
no, it's exciting. So hi everybody. This is Steph here. Steph Skupin. My company is The Leaders Work, and I work with veterinarians and other people, helping them look how they can change their thinking patterns, their mental patterns, so that they can have less stress in their lives. And today I'm talking with Dr. Kim Pinkey.
hello.
Who's she's a partner at East View Veterinary Clinic in Penn, New York State. And she's agreed to talk to you and to talk with me and for you today. And I invited her because she is working, she's been working for a long time at the same clinic, and she's come to a place of like feeling really confident and good in her work. And I think this is just so worth sharing. So Kim, would you just like to start your story again? So you 14 years ago, right? It was 14 years ago you graduated?
14 going on 15 years.
Right.
Clinic that kind of a vacation home to me. We in Penn, New York, my parents always came here growing up. So I knew this place. I was like, great, let me vacation here. But like anything, vacation spots, it's terrible to live there because now it's not vacation. Like real world hits, and oh yeah, there's the other part of that world. But it was great. You start off at a clinic and you're in that honeymoon period and everything's great. Mm-hmm. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, I think I got really frustrated. I'm on all the Facebook forums too. You see like all the associate complaints. I was right there. Like that was me. You complain bosses, you complain about the workload, you complain about the hours, you complain about no work-life balance, you complain about your technicians, you complain about everything. There's always something that could be better. And then you stay long enough, and I saw a lot of turnover. Associates would come, they would be great, they would be happy, perfect fit, they'd get stressed, they'd get burned out, and then they leave. And then they have kids. My sidekick, sorry everybody. But you know what, I realized I could have left at any point. To be honest, I thought about leaving so many times. I could have gone home, I could have opened my own practice, another clinic. The grass always looks greener on the other side. When right. Different boss, the clients will be better, the staff will be better, everything will be better. But I stayed, and they offered me partnership, and I have the unique, certainly not the only person that has it, but the unique perspective that I stayed in the same clinic. I know the concerns everybody has with it, and I faced them head on. I didn't run away to the next clinic. Those I'd still have the same problems. Now I'm in a position, you stay long enough, you can eventually get in a position where you can start to make some changes, or you start accepting what's not perfect, and you're willing to have I don't know. I don't think I'd say like lowering my standards, but you realize not everything's going to be perfect. So you're willing to put up with a certain non-perfect, imperfect life, Right. And now my perspective is, the entire veterinary community is short-staffed. So we right. need more people, but I know what I want in my clinic. I know the downfalls, and I need to find that person that's willing to accept the downfalls like me, and that's willing to stick with them. And I worry about our profession. We have a fight or flight mentality. Everybody does, obviously, but our mentality is flight. Let's get out of here. That place is go. What if we're the toxic? we obviously start off that way. None of us people, but situations can make us toxic, and it's not our fault. It's just the way the profession comes at us, and that's our response. And instead of looking inward and saying, you know what, maybe I'm not the problem, but I'm certainly not the solution right now, but I can be if I just perceive things different, if I work at it a little bit more, accept what could be yours and stick with it a little bit longer than a year or two, or you're never going to have the influence that you would like to have, because you're always the new person. And that's not a place of power, being a new person. It's not.
It's not. You're totally right. You're totally right. And I think honestly, Kim, I think this is not just the veterinary profession. Like, my husband works with teenagers, and he's high school graduates, and he's seeing the same thing. It's like there is this, wanting to have it be correct, like now, without having, I don't know what it is that we don't have to stay long enough, but I think what you're saying is just so important, that how can we become part of the solution at the place where we are, and not just go, well, this is toxic, so I'm out of here, I need to just leave this. And I think for me, what's really important there is to recognize that as we grow, we will always hit those moments. It's like, that's a normal growth thing. It's like, it's like the growing pains for the kids, right? The bones hurt. That's how we grow, we stretch. And so when we know that, so as we grow, there's going to be a moment when I am, going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
I know that, so I can expect it, right? And so it doesn't become anymore like this is all wrong. It's like, oh, I'm changing.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
we see ourselves in veterinary medicine, it's stressful, whether it's a good stress or a bad stress, and there's a lot of stress, clients and staff and yourself and the patients and everything it's a constant stress after stress after stress. And instead of trying to, I think we try to minimize the stress. I think we try to create a stress-free environment instead of trying to figure out how can I live in this stress? How can I balance it? How can I manipulate it? And how can I change my mindset where I'm learning from the stress? I'm learning how to manage it. And I think that's the key. It's been the key for me. I still have a very stressful life, but I love it.
Right. And I think it's also, it's intense. Like I would almost like to say, it's a really intense profession. And then sometimes it's stressful, like negatively intense.
Right.
And sometimes it's positively intense. Like we have those days where like it's a full day, it's chock-a-block, but everything runs smoothly. And at the end of it, you had great clients, the animals came in and went out, the surgeries all went well, and it feels so good, right? And so not all stress, like not all, stress is like, does it have to be negative?
It doesn't. And that's, it's a good point. Should we be calling it stress anymore? Maybe it is. It's just intense. And whether that's stressful or not, like stress always has a negative connotation to it.
Right.
So it is just intense. Maybe it's not stressful. It's just intense.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And, and sometimes it is like, I mean, when I do the work with people, there's always this, I'm not good enough. And we have ample reason in our profession to think I'm not good enough, right? Like somebody shouts at us, we lose an animal, there is lots and lots of reasons to find that. And then obviously also we hold ourselves to high standards, because that's what we're being taught at university. Like, everybody's going to respect you, everybody's going to listen to you. And then obviously the standards are higher than we can realistically even achieve.
Right.
But, to start to see that and put that into perspective, become aware of that. And those things need us to stay in a place long enough to stay with the problem rather than keep moving away from it, just like you're saying, right?
Right. Absolutely. And, you say that we have all these things coming at us to prove how I forget what you said, that we're constantly proven that it's stressful and we keep having like the bad cases. But another way to look at it is we have 100 times more things that we do every day that should reinforce that we are good enough and we're in than the average, but we hold on to that one that just tears us down. You can have a great day. And this is, I mean, all the motivational talks say this, right? You have a fantastic day and you show up at 8 o'clock, you're rocking it, you do your surgery, you're talking with the staff, you do great rounds, you do your appointments, you do another emergency surgery, and then somebody complains about their bill at 4:55 right before you leave, and now you're mad and you go home and you're stressed out, and that's what you talk about, the client who makes you really upset at the end of the day, rather than coming sharing with your family the dog you saved, rather than sharing the 10 appointments that you saw that went great, that you diagnosed this thing before the dog crashed and you saved its life before it was even an emergency, you know?
Exactly.
We have all of the moments, and that should prove that we're good enough, not the one where the client complained about us. Like,
and yeah, Kim, and that is so true. And that is also, you know, like that is the kind of work that I use this process called the work of Byron Katie, which is totally free, available on the internet. I facilitated, but that is what it's doing. It's changing that narrative to, like, you know, okay, well, in that day, how are you good enough, right? And then you do it over and over again, and eventually your mental patterns really change, because it becomes so obvious. Like, why would I? Why would I? You know? Yeah.
And it's funny, like changing your mental patterns, because you are taught that, you know, when you graduate, you're a doctor and clients will respect you. You tell them what to do and they're going to tell you yes, because you're in clinics in school, and that's what happens. Your clinicians talk to the clients and they've all of a sudden okayed this magical plan and you get to do everything, right? That's what you're expecting. You go out into general practice, your first client, you say, we need to do CBC, chem, lights, x-rays, urine sample, and then we need to admit your patient into your dog into the hospital. And they're like, no, we don't. I can't afford that. No. And then Google told me it was just this. And all of a sudden we hit the wall. Like, what do you mean no? What do you mean that Google is better than my degree? What do you mean this? And changing that perspective and learning from that is really hard. That's ingrained in you, that you are the doctor and people should listen. So what do we do? Nobody teaches you that. It's hard.
Totally. And then you go like, whoa, okay, how do I do this? And then, you know, and then you, like, if you're not careful, you make the client feel like they don't care, you know, which also doesn't help the animal and doesn't help them. So it's like, it's such a, and you know, learning that right now, like after this many years of practice, you can flow with that, right? You can accommodate the patient, you can make them feel appreciated, you can, you know, and that feels really good to have learned that, right?
Yeah. One of our biggest hot buttons, if you will, when we interview people is when I think we're taught that there's good clients and bad clients. So when we hear people say that, my next question is define a good client. What does that mean to you? And it usually has some varying degree of, you know, they let me do the workup, they let me do the treatment, they trust my recommendations. To me, a client is one that's walking through your door. They are trusting you as a family member, you know, and not only that, they're trusting you with their limitations, and that's a huge vulnerability. And that's what's hard to connect with clients about. When they're telling you no, they usually have a reason, because if they had all the resources in the world, they're little four-legged creatures, like their little baby. There's nothing you wouldn't do for this little thing, you know, and they feel the same way about it. You can hear the dogs in my background. I'd do anything for them. But what happens when I can't? I have to go in there and I have to admit to someone that as much as I love this thing, I can't afford treatment. And they have to say that to you, and they have to trust you that they'll be able to say that to you. And when they don't trust you, that's when the anger comes, because now you've made them feel guilty that they can't. You've made them feel like a bad parent because they can't, because you don't understand what they're going through.
Right.
But to me, they may say no to my first two recommendations, but if they choose option number 3, which is let's try this treatment. But if it doesn't work, please just come on back. You know, it might work. I know dogs get better despite it sometimes, right?
Right.
Here's your treatment. And in a couple days, if they come back, they don't feel guilty, or they don't feel embarrassed. They're willing to come back through the doors. So they're still a good client. They take my first and second recommendation. I reluctantly allowed them the third, but they came back because it didn't work. And now they're maybe in a better position to do the first two, and they're not. So.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And those are the kind of things that you learn. And then also, as you can keep seeing this works and this works, right? You just feel better about yourself, about, more confident, and it just all, it's starting to come together the longer you stay. So, Kim, as you starting as a partner, like what we connected over first was that you were sharing that you're like really passionate about human resources now, and that you started to organize more like related continuing education modules. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What it is that you're finding and doing?
I don't know when I had this realization. We have what we call our admin team at our clinic. And I was talking with one of my staff members, and I just realized, like, we were talking and all of it, like, we're talking about a job description, I think. And I was like, you know what? I said, we've got it all wrong. I said, our biggest first description in any job description has to be self-improvement. Like, if we hire anybody and they're not willing to self-reflect, to better themselves, how could they ever grow to be the person that our clients really need them to be? Like, we all have growth to do. None of us are perfect, myself included, far from it. So after talking to him, I realized that, I think everybody knows this, you can teach anyone to do anything, right? Like, they come in and they don't have a skill set in veterinary medicine. You can teach them to hold an animal, give the injections, whatever. Like, they don't need that skill. We can teach them, but what we can't teach them is emotional IQ, or EQ, whatever it's called. Can't teach them the willingness to self-reflect or have empathy and do all this stuff. You can coach them. Maybe they don't have it all, but you can coach them. And our clinic never focused on that. It was always like, lead by example. Let me teach you the skills and look at what you're doing, and hopefully you'll do it too. And if not, like, it's sink or swim. Like, if you're not willing to do it, you get frustrated and you're probably going to leave. So from the beginning, like, here is our HR department, is we are going to focus on just being comfortable in the uncomfortable. All these conversations that need to happen when people get a little, they're not stressed. They just have challenging situations. They have intense situations. Let's talk about them. How can we use that as a teaching moment? How can we be more empathetic to all of our clients, our staff members, ourselves? And I want it to be almost a requirement of employment going forward. We have this internal CE where we need to prove that we're in it, that we want to prevent the burnout, that we want to just be happier with ourselves. That's really what it is. And you can't change it, but you can change yourself. You can change things. You can change how you're handling each situation, and you can grow with that.
Totally. And I love that, in all of that, you keep saying, and it's for ourselves. How do we have empathy for ourselves, right? How do we stay happy with it? Because if we don't start there, we can't give it to other people, right?
Right. And that's something I feel like we've tried to preach through the years, but I think it's hard for people to believe that we mean it. Is you have to take care of yourself. And that's what work-life balance is. Everybody preaches work-life balance, but nobody has any idea what that means. I think that as a profession, we think it means more time off with more money, so we can do more things and spend more money or pay more debt off. And I don't think that that's work-life balance at all. I think work-life balance is, I just went on a tangent. My mind.
It was a good one. I liked it.
A hard time focusing. Get so excited about everything. But we tell people, you're entitled to so many days off. And that's for a reason, you know, and you should be taking them. If I have an employee that hasn't taken a vacation in a year or 2 years, they have no work-life balance. That's what I think it is. I think you have to take those days to focus on yourself, and only will you be able to come in and focus on the clinic or focus on the employees or focus on work. You have to take care of yourself first, or you've got nothing left for anyone else, you know?
Right.
And I think this is our downfall too, because we are such great, we believe in ourselves enough that we think we can handle it all. We think that we can come in and work the next shift so that our employees don't, or our coworkers don't have to pick up after us or pick up for us. And we can't leave them hanging because we know today's going to be a busy day. So I have to come in. They need me. They need me. They need me. And we take this burden on ourselves.
Right.
We should all just be able to enjoy a day off and not have to worry about what it's doing to anyone else. It's not doing anything. Or nothing that it's not doing to you when they take their time off. Like I hope we don't all resent our coworkers when they take days off, but we somehow think that they resent us for taking our days off.
Right. And it's really interesting to see that, you know, you can say, well, I'm taking care of everybody else, or you could turn it around and you could think, well, actually, isn't that a bit arrogant for me to think that if I'm not there, they can't cope?
Yeah. I think we're doing it with good intentions, but what you're saying is that they can't handle things without you. And I don't think that's true. I think everybody can handle themselves. Heck, I was gone 5 months on maternity leave, and I think they did okay without me.
Good. Well, good for them and good for you. So, and then like one of the stories that you told me when we were talking last, and like I'm kind of wrapping it up now, but that was such a nice story. It was one of your I think one of your techs or assistants who went through CE and like really had trouble. It was really scared of difficult clients beforehand. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, it's Karen. I love her. She's always been good with people, but I think when clients are upset, you know, that's not Karen. It's like anyone, you know, a client's upset, it's let's get the doctor. If the client's upset, let's get the doctor. And nobody wants the upset client, right? It's just, who can I pass this person off to? And you see that, like they just get defeated. They get yelled at, or and they're not really getting yelled at, you know, that you're getting emotions thrown at you from a client. They don't mean to yell at you. You're just the person in front of them when they're frustrated. Totally. And I think and that we can have too is you're not getting yelled at, you're not getting in trouble, you didn't do anything wrong, you can't get yelled at for that, but you are getting thrown at, a ton of emotions getting thrown your way, and you can see them like get just defeated. Like they come into the room and they're like, oh, I just got yelled at, oh, this client's really upset, or he's really angry. And after talking, she's been there long enough, and you know, we coached her through some things. We're like, you know, Karen, you can do this. You can. I think it's giving her a little empowerment. Like she doesn't need to go running to the doctor. You are a CSR, that you can make some calls up there. You can do what you think you need to do to get this client within reason what they want. She came, I forget any of the other details, but she came back one day and she's like, you know what? There is a really upset client up there, and I just did this, and this, and I told her this, and she's going to come in tomorrow, and she's really happy with that. And I was like, good for you. She's like, please don't get mad at me. I know that you're double booked, but she just really needed to come in. I said, I'm 100% okay with that. That's what she needed. You handled it, and you're okay. It's good for you. It's awesome, that growth, you know? And I think when you're always jumping from clinic to clinic and you never really are receptive to the coaching, and like you're always going to be mad at the next client too, rather than just how can I help them? And it makes everybody happier.
It's absolutely, it does. And it's not that easy to see in the beginning because it's scary. It really is scary. Somebody stands in front of you and they're, you know, upset for a reason, whether it's like sickness or a bill or a appointment that was overbooked or whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter. And so it's scary. But it's also like learning to appreciate what they're going through as well as what I'm going through, because it's like both of it needs to be appreciated. That is where it's really empowering. That is where we can really start to connect with people, and then we're being fed. Because I'm sure for Karen, you know, having dealt with that client and having diffused that situation and having her come back the next day being happy and then getting, you know, appreciated from you, that's a huge push. You know,
Yeah.
with that energy, you can go home and go like, whoa, that was a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that just comes momentum. You know, you're ready to face the next day. And it's
Exactly.
not fulfilling prophecy like the negative is, or actually still is, but it's more in a positive way.
Exactly.
Come in and you think today's going to be terrible, and it is. It's going to be terrible. Clients are going to start yelling, and you're going to be like, yep, knew it was going to be a crap day. There it goes. And then you snap at your coworker and they snap back and you're like, yep, crap day. It just keeps getting. But you come in, you're like, you know, I can handle this. And then your staff member next to you is like, yeah, we can. Let's do this. And then the door open, and you greet the client with a smile, and maybe they came in upset and they're like, whoa, maybe I'm not that upset anymore because you're smiling at me so much. That's contagious.
Absolutely. It is. It is.
Yeah.
So, but when you're stuck in that, when you're stuck in the moment, you know, of like, whoa, I'm having a crap day, it's really hard to get out of it in that moment. And, you know, it's through none of your faults. Now, none of us chooses to be that.
Right.
You know, it's like not a choice. So do you have any advice for anybody who's like, who gets stuck in those crap days, or stuck with, you know, there's some people who seem to have a stream of like really horrible clients. Do you have any advice for people like that, for vets like that?
I don't know, because it you know, it's going to be different for everybody. And a little bit of it, and I think some people don't like this phrase, but it's like fake it till you make it, kind of is what I do. I have Matt, I talked about him earlier. He is our he was our treatment clerk. So when our CSRs would call into the back and ask for help, they would get him, and he would always be like really happy. How can I help you today? And he was always really positive. And somebody at some point was really frustrated, and they're like, well, I can't be like Matt. He's always happy. And he overheard that. And he's like, you know what? I am not always happy. I'm actually angry a lot of the time. He's like, but that's my problem. I don't want to project that on anyone else. So it takes a lot of effort for me to answer that phone with a smile every time, and sometimes fake it that I'm actually happy. So my mood doesn't affect you. And I was like, huh. Okay, so I don't have to be happy. And that's the problem. You know, I think with all these motivational talks, people think, well, that's great that you're happy, but I'm not. So I don't think you have to be happy, you know. I'm not happy all the time, but I think I try to think about it, you know, that this person that's talking to me right now, it's not their fault that I'm not happy right now. And I can't give them that energy. I can't be that client that's coming at you with emotions when you're just asking for help. You know what I mean? And maybe that is just being a little empathetic, you know. You want someone to respond to you the way you would want to be responded to. And it's hard to think about that in the moment, because a lot of our reactions that's what they are. They're reactions, and they're instantaneous, and they have an effect on people, I think. So maybe the best advice I could give is, when somebody's doing something, just breathe for a second and don't react. Just think about it for just a second and give yourself enough time to have that fleeting moment of anger or unhappiness or whatever you would have done for a snap reaction, and just think about it for a second. And I think about this before. Some of my most irritating clients, I pretend like they're my mom. Parents are annoying sometimes. I love my mom. She's a heart of gold, but sometimes she's just a little grating. So I get it from her. And I always think, what would I want somebody, how would I want somebody to treat my mom? Because even when maybe she's a little much for people, she means really well. And I would want somebody to have grace with her. I wouldn't want them to just snap back or be rude to her. So let me pretend like you're my mom, or you know, mom. It's somebody's dad, somebody's sister, and you want them to be treated with respect, even when they're angry or upset or whatever. So
Totally. I think Sorry, I've forgotten his name. What's his name again?
Noah.
Noah, of course. Yes, you told me last time. So I think Noah is telling us we're about done. Yeah, no, he needs his mama's attention. But so I think what you said is really great. Like, you know, putting yourself into like, how would I want to be treated in this moment? And then, you know, and then think about that. And for me also, I'm just going to add another little thing, like to actually, you know, you don't want to need to have to shut your emotions away. So acknowledge them for yourself. Go like, whoa, I'm feeling really angry right now. And just that little bit of awareness of where you are, that, you know, it acknowledges where you are at, and it just takes you just a little bit away from being completely immersed in it, so you can make new decisions in that moment. So that also is a practice.
Yeah.
Okay, Kim, I think let's wrap it up. I know we could talk probably for another hour, but I think it's going to be too long for everybody to be wanting to listen to. And I think Noah would like to have your full attention for a little while.
Everybody needs a snack time, and when we're hungry, that's fine.
Yes, totally. No, I'm so there.
You
Okay.
hungry?
Thank you so much for coming and for agreeing to do this.
Anytime.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, all the best. And I love what you're doing at your clinic, and you know, like supporting your staff and the new associates. And I'm hoping you're finding, you know, an amazing person. Maybe you'll find someone through this interview. Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be great.
Right. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.